The first day of the Bass Masters netted somewhat of a surprise as 42-year-old Billy Noah of Thomasville, North Carolina grabbed the lead. He pulled in 6 fish, just 1 under the limit, at a total of 12 pounds, 2 ounces.
$40,000 first prize.
I'm a new leader here. We'll just have to hold the phone on that.
To begin with, I didn't go anywhere I was going to fish in practice. I just stayed away, completely away from what I was going to do. And I didn't know what this rising water was going to do. And it did hurt it, because I had been catching a lot more fish than this. But hopefully I can catch maybe 2 or 3 a day from now on, but I don't know. It's mighty tough fishing.
Guy Aker of Cherryville, North Carolina is a close second. His 5 fish netted 11 pounds, 4 ounces. Bob Ward is third. The Amsterdam, Missouri native landed 4 keepers at 10 pounds, 12 ounces. Some other notes from the first day. Jerry Ryan of Stanley, North Carolina pocketed the $500 prize for the biggest fish of the day. He only caught 1, but he tipped the scales at 6 pounds, 2 ounces. Noted pro Roland Martin had a good day. He caught 5 for a total of 9.4, but he was penalized 20 ounces for checking in 2 minutes late, which lowered his total to 8 even. And defending champion Stanley Mitchell had a slow day. He caught only 2 at 3 pounds, 7 ounces. Day 2 of the Bass Masters tomorrow. The open weigh-in at the Civic Center begins at 3 o'clock. Rick Ponce, WSFA TV Sports.
Folks, this Watson. Remember, our lead is 11 pounds, 4 ounces for $40,000 first prize.
I'm a new leader here. We'll just have to hold the phone on that.
Folks, Guy Aker is fishing his 7th Bass Masters Classic. Now, imagine fishing on the trip. Now, these boys get all the expenses paid on this trip. They will aim of the year shoot out, and he, of course, outperformed all the fishermen of that particular year.
Do you realize you are 4 fish ahead of last year already, and this is the first day?
I'm just going to quit and go home, Phil. I caught those fish today just totally in your memory. You had so much fun last year, and before this thing started, I thought I'd catch a few and just see what your action would be. I didn't.
Well, as long as you messed up, you might as well just go ahead and win it.
Oh, okay. I was thinking about just getting on home and going to the Oklahoma-Kansas game this weekend. Surely I've caught about all I can, you know.
What did you do?
I just did what I said I was going to do. I went out there and threw the spinnerbait. I didn't really realize, Phil, that there was 5 fish out there. This is the bait that I caught them on today. I'm using a fairly large-sized blade. A lot of time in this kind of water, I use a lot larger blade.
How many of those you have in your tackle box?
You can only carry, they weigh 5 pounds each. You can only carry 2 because of the 10-pound limit. Blue and chartreuse mother goose right there.
Get them at the store.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Jimmy Houston model.
Throw the ball, man. Run it in. There you have it, attention. No flags over the field. No. 15 yards. Thanks, quarterback. Dives in. Turn around and weed. Ooh, doggy.
Cases were very complimentary odds. I think it's safe to say that
she sold that, and she did that for me.
Please do. I'd like to know if she sells any of that work, because I'd love to have a piece.
Oh,
It's so
I'm sure she would do you one. And if she hadn't, it might take her a month or two to get it done. But y'all have any questions you want to ask me? He's so pretty. Man, Susan is all the time going to these arts things, and she goes up to North Carolina to attend certain seminars on this kind of.
6.7% of the gold. Now we're a little less, so we probably are closer to 48.6. Brown printing up 21.5. Effort in getting out to the employees and the firms or whichever group. No, we're not almost ready.
$14,424, and as of this report, they've raised 72.8%, for a total of...
All of the numbers added, we now stand at $1,111,461.79.
The Democratic nominee, George Wallace, was back in East Alabama today with campaign stops in Valley, Lafayette, and Roanoke. This makes the first time this week the former governor has done some stumping with the general public. The campaign stops put Wallace in front of the type of people his polls show favor him: middle and lower income, rural blacks and whites. And Mr. Wallace made a point of telling his audience that his Republican opponent, who he did not name, was most popular with what he called the rich whites. That was about the only reference he made about his opponents. Mr. Wallace spent most of the rest of his speech listing what he considered the accomplishments of his previous administrations: his road program, junior and technical college program, his defiance of federal judges. He says his first priority in a new administration would be seeking new industry. The former governor said he had gained experience and worldwide recognition from his previous terms of office. He says it's worth something. For the first time in more than a week, the new Mrs. Wallace joined her husband on the campaign trail, passing out brochures, lapel pins, and bumper stickers. Tonight, the former governor is off to Huntsville for a Democratic fundraising dinner with Ohio Senator John Glenn. Chris Grimshaw, WSFA TV News, with the Wallace campaign in Lafayette.
I think I attached to the memorandum that I submitted to you copies of two opinions which you really need to consider, which I want to rebut primarily in what he said. First of all, he said the Attorney General pay rate statute, which was passed in 1969, has authorized raises by Attorney General.
Well, then we'll be right back here and tackle them just like everything else that comes along. Gentlemen, I thank you for your cogent arguments. I appreciate the preparation that all of you all put into this short hearing we stand in receipt.
The power company's non-union workers will continue filling in for union linemen until full crews report back to work. That's expected to be Monday, although a few electrical workers across the state reportedly returned to work today. The power company has given the strikers 10 days to come back in. The extra time is to allow IBEW members to complete any temporary job assignments they might have taken during the 6-week-old strike. Power company officials say they're pleased with the settlement. Officials say details of the contract included job productivity and improvements for both the workers and for the power company's total operations. But company spokesman Bryant Allen says money wasn't a major issue.
It was a series of work rules and changes in the present contract. The company was trying to increase a little productivity here and there, and I don't have the specific terms of the present contract that was accepted, but I don't think money was a big issue.
Allen denied reports that union leaders objected to a settlement in a strike last November. That's when several electrical linemen walked off their jobs because they didn't want to handle high-voltage power lines with insulated gloves.
It's my understanding that the gloving policy was not a part of this negotiation for this contract at all. It was taken to federal arbitration, as these issues should be. And you're correct, there was some talk about it and some controversy about it at the beginning of these negotiations.
Power company officials say they don't expect any more problems and say service to customers will continue as it did when the workers went on strike 46 days ago. Kim Davis, WSFA TV News.
Terms of the present.
McPhillips is basing his case on a state law which prohibits constitutional officers' salaries from changing during their current term in office. However, under the judicial article, which went into effect in 1973, state judges can receive salary increases approved during their current term on the bench. Granick was granted the pay increases under a statute which mandates the Attorney General's salary should be the same as an Associate Justice of the Supreme Court. In August, Governor James asked the Supreme Court to issue an advisory opinion on whether the Attorney General had legally collected the salary increases. Today's hearing in Judge Sam Taylor's court was on a motion by McPhillips to have Judge Taylor hear the case before the Supreme Court issues an opinion on the matter. Attorney Oakley Melton, who's representing several constitutional officers named as defendants in McPhillips' suit, want to stay in the lower court proceeding in August. Melton told Judge Taylor he should uphold the stay and give the Supreme Court a chance to at most resolve the issue and at least give the lower court some guidance. Once again, Taylor decided to wait on a ruling from the High Court before proceeding with McPhillips' suit. McPhillips gave no indication if he would appeal today's ruling. Don Phelps, WSFA TV News.
According to Congressman Dickinson, if the German MBB company lands a $2 to $4 billion contract with the Department of Defense, MBB will start operations in Alabama's 2nd District. 350 new jobs could open up to build anti-armor weapons called Ambrus. John Mueller, a vice president with MBB's American subsidiary, TDS, says his firm has decided on this area mainly because Congressman Dickinson has been so helpful.
Secondly, the 2nd District offers a rather competitive industrial base with its tax base, high availability of skilled labor, etc. And lastly, the Chamber of Commerce and the Alabama Development Office has sponsored us here in this area, and we're rather satisfied with the reception we received.
After the news conference, Mueller told TV 12 News MBB will build in Montgomery if the contract comes through. Mueller expects to hear from the Army during the first few months of 1983. Susan Silvernail, WSFA TV News.
Udo Schwager is the export director for the...
First priority that we need in our public schools today is to remove a material that potentially is life-threatening. All right, to answer your first question, I personally was not made aware of this. Throughout our school systems in Alabama,
Students at the University of North Alabama had a chance to hear what Republican Emory Farmer wants to do for Alabama if elected governor in November. During his talk about education, Mr. Farmer brought up the proposed debate. He had agreed to debate Mr. Wallace several months ago, and today gave the students several reasons why he thinks the former governor backed down.
He's decided that he doesn't want a debate. Must be that he has something that he doesn't want to discuss with the voters of Alabama. Must be some reason that he has something he does not want to share with the voters of Alabama. deep down inside, I think he's just chicken.
Later, at the Florence Kiwanis Club, Mr. Fulmer said he believes in a fully funded kindergarten program. He says it's wrong for half of the children to be left out of the program because their name didn't get drawn out of a hat. Mr. Fulmer says his comment that proration is the cruelest thing that can happen to school children has been twisted by Paul Hubbard, whom he referred to as the Grand Wizard of the Alabama Education Association. Mr. Fulmer says Mr. Hubbard is responsible for forcing the budget into proration. After lunch, it was on to a large shopping mall nearby to shake hands and ask for votes. Meanwhile, Mr. Fulmer's opponent was doing some handshaking of his own. Chris Grimshaw has a report on that campaign.
Yes, indeed. Glad to see you.
Most of the trucks were idle today at the power company's warehouse headquarters in Montgomery. Activity is expected to pick up Monday when several union linemen are likely to report back to work. The power company has given all of the 3,900 workers 10 days to come back in. The utility is allowing them time to complete outside jobs. Non-union employees will continue filling in for the striking linemen until full crews are back in the field. Job schedules reportedly were made today. Power company officials say they are pleased with the settlement, and officials are also thankful that the strike occurred during the summer when the weather was warm.
The weather conditions certainly have been nice since the middle of August when they went out on strike. I suppose lucky would be a good way to express it because we have had no severe weather at all.
Allen also says service to customers continued as usual.
At first we thought that new service and some other types of audits and things would be delayed, but I don't think that happened. The non-union people were able to keep service to our customers in a very fine way.
Power company officials say they don't expect any more problems. Kim Davis, WSFA TV News.
Mr. Wallace was joined at the fundraiser by several dozen Democratic nominees here in North Alabama. All of the nominees rallied support for their party, and specifically Mr. Wallace. Even the former governor recognized the strong effort by the Republicans this year.
Now, those who are anti-Democratic Party and anti-George Wallace and anti-everything we stand for, they are going to come out and vote because they think they do have a chance. But when we who are the many do come out and vote, they're going to find they had no chance at all. But if you take that as we are going to win without working, of course we will lose. I want you to come out and vote. I'm sure you will.
Mr. Wallace compared this year's race to the 1966 Republican effort to run former Congressman Jim Martin against Lurleen Wallace. Former astronaut John Glenn, now a second-term senator from Ohio, gave praise to Mr. Wallace and specifically what he called the long personal battle since the 1972 assassination attempt. Mr. Glenn, focusing on the national political battle, accused the Republicans of slamming the door shut on opportunity. Mr. Glenn is reportedly gliding toward a potential 1984 presidential campaign. Chris Grimshaw, WSFA TV News with the Wallace campaign in Huntsville.
Mr. Farmer told the students that he believes Mr. Wallace has decided not to debate him because there are some things the former governor doesn't want to discuss. When he called Mr. Wallace chicken for not debating, the students showed their agreement with a burst of applause. Later at the Florence Kiwanis Club, Mr. Farmer took on the chief lobbyist for the state teacher organization. He says Alabama Education Association Executive Secretary Paul Hubbard has twisted his comments about proration. Mr. Farmer explained that he's not at odds with teachers, but the school children are hurt the most when a budget must be prorated. And he blamed Mr. Hubbard, whom he referred to as the grand wizard of the AEA.
Who doesn't like me because he cannot own me. And as a result, whatever he can say that I'm anti-education and so forth, he's going to do. And that's fine. But I like to set the record straight that he forced a budget into proration and at the expense of our children. And if it comes down to a point of whose side I'm on the side of the children.
At a nearby mall, Mr. Farmer shook some hands, passed out campaign material, and asked people for their votes and their help. In the morning, Mr. Farmer plans to spend some time with the Alabama Republican Council, an organization of black Republicans who are meeting in Montgomery. Dennis Latham, WSFA TV News with the Farmer campaign in Florence.
For the first time in their history, Alabama State will embark on an NCAA Division I basketball schedule. And to prove they're serious about playing with the big boys, Coach James Oliver has already scheduled the likes of Georgetown and Arkansas on this year's slate.
Yes, I made the schedule, and I made it as tough as I could possibly get it, because I think if we're going to play on this division and learn to compete with these people, in Division I, then we have to play them. We have to play the toughest people that we possibly can in order to get some consideration at the end of the year for postseason, tournament playoff game.
Oliver returns 3 starters from last year's 22-6 squad, and he feels he has the team to compete in Division I.
We have a very good nucleus, and we got 3 starters back, but we have about 10 players back from a team last year. We only lost 2 people that played a lot for us, and that was Fred Freeman and James Smith, who were seniors. So we feel like we've adequately replaced those people, and I think that the people that we have here are able to play the schedule and do a very good job with it.
Ready or not, Division I competition for Alabama State will begin November the 26th. They open against Kentucky State in the Tip-Off Classic here in Dunn Arena. Reporting from Alabama State, Rick Pons, WSFA TV Sports.
When they blasted off from the Powder magazine launch early this morning, the leaders were a couple of North Carolinians, Billy Noah and Guy Aker. Though they haven't said, it's believed they were fishing the same pattern yesterday. Whatever, they caught only 1 fish between them today. Noah weighed in a 2-pound, 6-ounce bass and lost his lead. Day 2 belonged to Villis Bo Dowden, a slow-talking Louisianan who won Classic 10 in upstate New York. He knows how to fish. Only 4 keepers for Bo, but one of them weighed 6 pounds and an ounce, the big bass of the day. Bo's total of 12 pounds, 13 ounces catapulted him from 10th to 1st in the standings. 20 pounds, 1 ounce, the total, and he has 1 day to go to try to win this tournament.
Tell me about it, without telling me about it.
Well, it's a real unique experience to throw out and hook a fish and reel him towards the boat and think he's a little fish and get ready to lift him over inside the boat and he decides to go the other way.
Then you knew something, huh?
Then you know that something's wrong. You're not going to be able to horse the fish, and when she jumps out of the water about 1.5 feet in there, you decide you better really take it a little slow because you just see exactly how big that monster is.
Did you do that war hoop when you got him in the boat?
I don't think I did the war hoop, but I sure kissed her.
A few minutes after Bo weighed in, along came Paul Elias of Laurel, Mississippi. 5 fish totaling 11 pounds, good for second place with 1 day to go. Bo came in earlier than you. He mentioned that you had some fish. Does that mean that you all were fishing pretty close together?
Yeah, Bo and I found one of our spots is the same spot. And I've caught several more fish off of it than Bo has, but we're both fishing it a little different too. And Bo's fishing for largemouth and I'm fishing for spots.
Bill Ward, son of Virgil Ward, held to third place with a catch of 6 pounds today, totaled 16-12 for the 2 days of fishing. Jack Chancellor of Phoenix City, Alabama, third place finisher last year, became the first man to weigh in the limit of 14-inch bass. His 7 totaled 10 pounds 3 ounces, and it pushed him up to fourth place, just a little over 3 pounds behind the leader, Bo Dowden. When they blasted off from the Powder magazine launch early this morning, the leaders were a couple of North Carolinians, Billy Noah and Guy Aker. Though they haven't said, it's believed they were fishing the same pattern yesterday. Whatever, they caught only 1 fish between them today. Noah weighed in a 2-pound 6-ounce bass and lost his lead. Day 2 belonged to Villis Bo Dowden, a slow-talking Louisianan who won Classic 10 in upstate New York. He knows how to fish. Only 4 keepers for Bo, but one of them weighed 6 pounds and an ounce, the big bass of the day. Bo's total of 12 pounds, 13 ounces catapulted him from 10th to 1st in the standings. 20 pounds, 1 ounce, the total, and he has 1 day to go to try to win this tournament.
It's a real unique experience to throw out and hook a fish and reel him towards the boat and think he's a little fish and get ready to lift him over inside the boat and he decides to go the other way.
Then you knew something, huh?
Then you know that something's wrong. You're not going to be able to horse the fish, and when she jumps out of the water about 1.5 feet in there, you decide you better really take it a little slow because you just see exactly how big that monster is.
A few minutes after Bo weighed in, along came Paul Elias of Laurel, Mississippi. 5 fish totaling 11 pounds, good for second place with 1 day to go. Bill Ward, son of Virgil Ward, held to third place with a catch of 6 pounds today, totaled 16-12 for the 2 days of fishing. Jack Chancellor of Phoenix City, Alabama, third place finisher last year, became the first man to weigh in the limit of 14-inch bass. His 7 totaled 10 pounds 3 ounces, and it pushed him up to fourth place, just a little over 3 pounds behind the leader, Bo Dowden.
Butler drove 70 yards to score first. Quarterback Pat Stogner off the fake finds tight end Joe Hines open over the middle for a 2-yard touchdown pass. 10:34 left in the second, 7-0 Rebels. But it didn't take Jeff Davis long to strike back on the next series. Mike Turk off the roll right finds Ed Bandy open down the sidelines. It connects for a 69-yard touchdown. That tied it at 7-all, where it stayed until halftime. Late in the third now, after a short Butler punt, Pop Coley caps a 44-yard drive, diving it over from the 1. 14-7 falls after 3. They put it away late in the fourth. Turk to Arthur Mitchell, a great catch, and he won't be denied the end zone. The point after failed. Top-ranked Jeff Davis stays unbeaten. They down Butler the final 20-7. Rick Pons, WSFA TV Sports.
Game 3 of the World Series moves to Milwaukee's County Stadium. Top of the 5th, no score. Rookie Willie McGee is up. He hits a Vukovic pitch deep to right field. Charlie Moore to the wall. It's a home run. 3-run home run. Cardinals lead 3-0. Top of the 7th, Lonnie Smith, with the Cardinals leading 3-0, hits a drive into right center field. It's in the gap and will go. Game 3 of the World Series moves to Milwaukee's County Stadium. Top of the fifth, no score. Rookie Willie McGee is up. He hits a Vukovic pitch deep to right field. Charlie Moore to the wall. It's a home run. 3-run home run. Cardinals lead 3-0. Top of the seventh, Lonnie Smith, with the Cardinals leading 3-0, hits a drive into right center field. It's in the gap and will go all the way to the wall. Lonnie Smith, around second, going to go for the triple. Here's Gantner's relay. It goes into the dugout. Lonnie Smith is awarded home, and the Cardinals build a 4-0 lead. And they would get more. Far in the seventh, again, it's the rookie, Willie McGee. The Pete Vukovic pitch is hit into right field, into the bleachers. Home run, 5-0 Cardinals, 8th inning. Joaquin Andujar, working on a 2-hitter, delivers to Ted Simmons. Simmons, a shot back to the mound off of the knee of Andujar. Andujar down in pain. Despite the fact he had been working on a 2-hitter, Andujar could not continue. He had to be carried from the field, knocked out of the game. Top of the 9th inning, Cardinals lead 6-2. Gorman Thomas hits a tremendous drive to deep left center field. Rookie Willie McGee leaps. He robs Thomas of a sure home run. Spectacular catch as the Cardinals win Game 3, 6-2. I'm George Michael for NBC News.
And basking in the glow of this, at least mentally. And so we're riding along, and I said, Andy,
the unemployment rate in this district in which you are in tonight, we have about...
And today I would submit to you that that grand old principle of our party is under assault from the grand old party. And 20 months ago, the doors of opportunity began slamming shut in this country. And our pledge as Democrats is to start opening those doors once again.
I came up behind him, going to get up, and he got up. He was an Irishman. He said,
folks say, how you going to vote? Now, those who are anti-Democratic Party and anti-George Wallace and anti-everything we stand for, they are going to come out and vote because they think they do have a chance. But when we, who are the many, do come out and vote, they're going to find they had no chance at all. But if you take that as we are going to win without working, of course we will lose. I want you to come out and vote.
Not new in our Democratic Party. It's been a hallmark of our party since its very inception. And today that proud tradition remains alive and well right here in Alabama. And you can see it in the leadership that Ronnie and Bill have brought to Congress. It's apparent in the courageous and the successful 10-year battle of George Wallace.
The Alabama Black Republican Council is backing Emory Fulmer for governor. The group welcomed not only the candidate, but also his no-nonsense philosophy to the council's second annual convention. Mr. Fulmer says black Alabamians don't want special treatment or to be treated like cripples. He says blacks just want honesty, fairness, and opportunity.
We will provide the tools, but you must do the work. We will provide the opportunities, but you must take advantage of it. And I think that's the fairness that everybody wants, and that's what I pledge to you.
And according to Emory Fulmer, blacks enjoyed few opportunities in city government before he assumed the mayor's office. He said he initiated a training program so that blacks could get city jobs as heavy equipment operators. So while Mr. Fulmer did not promise preferential treatment, he did promise what he calls pilot programs for communities. He won't offer handouts, he says, just a hand up.
I want this young man and thousands of others across this state to have a good education, to learn the skills that he can get a job and hold a job, to have the opportunity to live a good life in peace and safety.
And Mr. Fulmer promised to protect the independence of predominantly black colleges and universities like Alabama State.
And as I'm governor, unless I'm ordered to do so by a higher power than myself, that we will maintain such schools as Alabama State University, A&M, so forth.
Mr. Fulmer says it might be more efficient to bring all of Alabama's four-year schools under one management, but it's more important to preserve an institution's separate traditions and heritage. Susan Silvernail, WSFA TV News.
With music, food, and speeches, the Billy Joe Camp bid for Congress came to Dozier today. About 300 people showed up to welcome Mr. Camp to town.
Good to see you.
And be treated to a free meal of camp stew and coleslaw. Mr. Camp shook hands and talked politics with people in the crowd as they stood in line. Though the event was billed as a Billy Joe Camp rally, it bore a strong resemblance to a Democratic Party rally with several other well-known Democrats joining the crowd. The apparent party support was enhanced during Mr. Camp's speech when he called for voters to pull for a straight Democratic ticket in the election and took a few shots at Republicans.
The high interest rate, the tight money situation was put on by our national government, stated and told to us that it was going to be done because they thought we were overextended on credit. Well, they've had this spigot run down too long, and they better let up on it, or this country is going to suffer some desperate and more trying economic times than we see now.
Mr. Camp also tried to appeal to a large number of farmers in the crowd. Campaign workers say they're making no special effort to strengthen their campaign in rural parts of the state, but they admit rural votes are playing a very important role in the congressional race. Tom Foreman, WSFA TV News, reporting from Dozier.
When the 41 fishermen from across the country bolted out of the launch area, Laurel, Mississippi's Paul Elias was in second place. Elias trailed the leader by only 5 ounces beginning the third day. He was headed for his spot, a place he'd fished for the first 2 days of the 3-day tournament, about 30 miles west of the capital city.
It was just such a place, and it had enough cover, and I'd grafted a lot, and I knew there was a lot of fish there.
Elias had caught his 7-fish limit by 1 o'clock, but kept reeling them in and throwing the smaller ones away. At weigh-in, Elias was the only fisherman today and only the second of the tournament to reach the 7-fish limit. His total for the day, 12 pounds 14 ounces, bringing his total to 32 pounds 8 ounces. Coming in second in the tournament was Phoenix City, Alabama's Jack Chancellor, 8 pounds behind with a total of 24 pounds 8 ounces. Jack fished the banks and snagged 4 bass totaling 7 pounds 11 ounces today. In third place was Bo Dowden. The Natchitoches, Louisiana marine dealer started the day in the lead and for a while even fished the same hole with Elias, but Elias doesn't think Bowden handled the spot well.
I think I realized the potential of it more so than Bo did. Bo was in position to beat me there 2 days in a row. Now, he beat me there the first day and he didn't stay on it very long.
Was that his problem? He was in a hurry?
It might have been, but now Bo fished it differently than I did, and I don't think Bo realized that those spots were out there in that deeper water. Now, he might have and just couldn't catch them, or he wasn't lucky enough to catch them when he was there.
Dowden fished up and down the river, but only caught 2 fish that met the size requirements, weighing a total of 3 pounds 2 ounces for a 3-day total of 23 pounds 4 ounces. For Elias, it was a profitable 3 days of casting and reeling, $40,500, boosting his career bass fishing earnings to well over $64,000. Chris Grimshaw, WSFA TV.
The Cardinals got out front right off the bat against Moose Haas after a Ken Oberkfell double. George Hendricks sends this shot toward Robin Yount. It's short. It takes a bad hop over the sure glove of Yount. Oberkfell scores from second. It's a single, 1-0 St. Louis. Top of the second now, 2 steals and a wild pitch find runners on second and third. Tommy Herloff's a long fly to center. Gorman Thomas slips after making the catch. Speedy Willie McGee and Monty Smith tag. Both score on the sacrifice. 3-0 Cardinals. Still in the second after a walk to Oberkfell, Keith Hernandez rolls one right between the legs of Jim Gantner in second. An error all the way. Oberkfell scores 4-0 St. Louis. The Brewers get on the board in the 5th. Runners on the corners. Watch this play. Gantner, a hopper up the middle. Ozzie Smith, a great grab. Tag second. Fires to first for the double play. Don Money did score from third, but Milwaukee missed a golden opportunity. 4-1 Cards after 5. St. Louis added another in the 6th, but the Brewers rallied for 6 runs in the 7th, all with 2 outs. Runners on first and second. Gantner doubles off Dave LaPointe to right center. Don Money scores. That made it 5-2. Robin Yount singled in 2 more. Then Cecil Cooper follows with this infield single off Jim Cott. It's by Ogerfeld at third. Paul Molitor scores to tie it at 5. Jeff Laddie now on, and the bases loaded. Gorman Thomas silent for the series so far, but he lashes this double to center. It's a game winner. Yount and Cooper come in to score. 7-5. Brewers rally to win it. They tie the series at 2 games all. Game 5 tomorrow in Milwaukee.
Auburn recorded its first shutout of the season. The Tiger defense held Tech to just 153 yards total offense, intercepting 3 passes and stopping the Yellow Jackets on downs several times. Auburn scored first on a 60-yard pass. Randy Campbell to former quarterback Clayton Buford, now a wide receiver. It was Campbell's best day throwing, 7 completions and 13 tries, 132 yards, and the touchdown. Auburn scored 2 more TDs, one on this 10-yard run by Lionel James, another on a 1-yard run by Greg Pratt. The Tigers played without freshman star Bo Jackson. He has a slight leg injury, but another freshman, Tim Jesse, took up the slack, gaining 74 yards on 9 carries. But the day belonged to the Auburn defense, which sacked the quarterback time and again and intercepted Jim Bob Taylor 3 times, 2 by Bob Harris, 1 by David King, King's 5th interception of the year. Auburn is now 5-1. Tech slips to 3-3. This is Phil Snow reporting from Auburn.
With Election Day now just a little more than 2 weeks away, Mr. Wallace made a brief appearance today and was warmly welcomed by a crowd at the Montgomery International Speedway. The crowd was there to watch a 200-lap national championship stock car race, and the former governor made it clear he did not want to detract from the main event.
That loves automobile racing and has done more for racing in the state of Alabama than any other human being I know of, ladies and gentlemen, a man that was very, very instrumental in the building of Alabama International Motor Speedway at Talladega. And ladies and gentlemen, here he is, former Governor George Wallace. George, glad to have you out here, Mr. Parker.
Mr. Wallace spent very little time talking to the crowd, and what he had to say was about auto racing, not politics.
This is a great race in the state, and I believe today that Davey Allison is the wonderful position, and I'm going to present this to him for winning that.
Mr. Wallace helped present an award to the top qualifying driver for the race, Davey Allison, and then he left. Mr. Wallace has been saying it is important that Democrats not be overly confident about winning the governor's race or any other race in this state election. And though he wasn't talking politics today, he did make one political statement just as he was leaving. It was simply, don't forget November 2nd. Tom Foreman, WSFA TV News.
Emory Fulmer might be wise to hope blacks stay at home on November 2nd. George Wallace has demonstrated his drawing power for black Alabamians. In both the primary and runoff, he won roughly 30% of a black vote black leaders had committed to George McMillan. The Alabama Democratic Conference has since endorsed Wallace, not out of any genuine affection for the candidate, as Chairman Joe Reed explained, but out of allegiance to the Democratic Party and mistrust of Mr. Fulmer. The Alabama Black Republican Council is challenging that kind of thinking. Yesterday, the small group warmly received Mr. Fulmer and his ideas about providing opportunities for blacks to make it on their own. Council Chairman Douglas Moore.
Yes, but I think now we want to own
the business. We want to own the restaurant. We want to own the motel. And the Republican Party provided opportunity for us to own. That's what we want to do at this point. We want to own something.
In explaining McMillan's defeat, state lawmaker Alvin Holmes said George Wallace did a better job articulating the economic fear felt by many blacks. Wallace has hammered away at two ideas: that his name recognition will attract new industry to the state, and that a few are profiting from the hard economic times of many. You can't have it both ways, says Moore.
You cannot fight business on one hand, and then one hand talk about big business and expect big business to come locate in the state.
For better or for worse, Emory Fulmer is tied to the hardline economic policies of Ronald Reagan and the Republican right. Mr. Fulmer apparently hit a nerve in this crowd when he said he couldn't offer a handout, just a hand up.
Well, the Democratic Party has been built on the basis of a handout. In other words, I'll give you a fish every day. And we are simply saying is teach a man how to fish, and you feed him for a lifetime. And I think the Republican Party provides that kind of opportunity for us.
And Moore says the Democratic Party would be advised not to take the black vote for granted. Susan Silvernail, WSFA TV News.
Recorded its first shutout of the season. The Tiger defense held Tech to just 153 yards total offense, intercepting 3 passes and stopping the Yellow Jackets on downs several times. Auburn scored first on a 60-yard pass. Randy Campbell to former quarterback Clayton Buford, now a wide receiver. It was Campbell's best day throwing, 7 completions in 13 tries, 132 yards, and the touchdown. Auburn scored 2 more TDs, one on this 10-yard run by Lionel James, another on a 1-yard run by Greg Pratt. The Tigers played without freshman star Bo Jackson. He has a slight leg injury, but another freshman, Tim Jesse, took up the slack, gaining 74 yards on 9 carries. But the day belonged to the Auburn defense, which sacked the quarterback time and again and intercepted Jim Bob Taylor 3 times, 2 by Bob Harris, 1 by David King, King's 5th interception of the year. Auburn is now 5-1. Tech slips to 3-3. This is Phil Snow reporting from Auburn.
Alabama's first play from scrimmage was an indication of things to come. Walter Lewis bobbles a snap. It's slapped away. Tennessee comes up with it deep in Tide territory. The first of 4 Bama turnovers. It set up a ball field goal. But the Tide roars back after a Jeremiah Castile interception. Lewis pitches to Joe Carter. He scores from the 4, 7-3 Alabama. The Tide goes to the air for their second tally. Lewis to Jesse Bendros. He makes a diving catch in the end zone. 14-3 Alabama. The Vols' first TD came through the air. Alan Cockrell to the speedy Willie Gault. He's behind everybody. A 52-yard touchdown strike. 14-10 Alabama. After another Claude Revitt's field goal cut it to 14-13, Lewis goes to the air again. This time he finds Joey Jones in the end zone. Another great catch. 21-13 Alabama at intermission. But the third quarter is all Tennessee. After a Tide fumble, Cockrell drills one to Mike Miller. He's open down the sidelines. A 40-yard touchdown. The try for 2 gave the Vols a 24-21 lead. They led it 27-21 going into the 4th. That's when Chuck Coleman breaks through the Tide defense and dashes 35 yards untouched for a score. After a 2-point conversion, Tennessee leads Alabama 35-21. But the Tide didn't quit. After a touchdown with 5 minutes left, Walter Lewis is driving Bama for the tying score. This clutch 4th and 7 completion to Bendros goes out of bounds at the Tennessee 17. Then with just 17 seconds left, Lewis with a desperation pass tries to find Darrell White in the end zone. but it's batted away and the ball's intercept. Tennessee beats Alabama for the first time in 11 years, 35-28. The Crimson Tide tries to regroup against Cincinnati next Saturday in Tuscaloosa. In Auburn, the Tigers blistered Georgia Tech 24-0. A Randy Campbell pass to Clayton Buford covering 60 yards put Auburn up 7-0 in the first quarter. But the story of the game had to be the Tiger defense. They sacked Tech quarterback Jim Bob Taylor numerous times and also picked off 3 interceptions. Playing without superback Bo Jackson, who was nursing a leg injury, the Tigers relied on others to get the running done. One, Lionel James. He scores here on a third-quarter sweep to make it 17-0. Greg Pratt added another third-quarter touchdown, and the Tigers whipped Georgia Tech 24-0. It's on to Starkville to play Mississippi State next week. More on Auburn's win over Georgia Tech on the Auburn Football Review immediately following the news. Most of the crowd of 1,500 or so at MIS were on hand to see NASCAR's Donnie Allison race. The Hueytown native has been off the NASCAR circuit this season, but he has run in several All-Pro events. His nephew, Davey, the son of Bobby Allison, an aspiring NASCAR driver, was also racing. In fact, he sat on the pole for today's All-Pro 200. But the day would belong to that man, Randy Couch, the 1981 All-Pro points champion. When racing began, Davey Allison grabbed the lead, but he held it for only 2 laps. Then Uncle Donnie took over. For the next 117 laps, Donnie controlled the race. Donnie Allison tried to complete the entire 200 laps without a pit stop, and it cost him. Couch fighting off the 32-lap deficit, battled back to take the lead on lap 180. From there, he rolled to victory in the All-Pro 200. With the win, Couch now takes over first place in the All-Pro point standings. He's passed Gary Adams by 20 points. Adams finished the race in 9th place.
Bottom of the third, the Brewers leading 1-0 with Mike Caldwell, working to Keith Hernandez. Hernandez a drive into left center field. Gorman Thomas dives, but he can't get the ball. That'll enable David Green to score. The game is tied 1-1. Bottom of the third, tied 1-1. Cecil Cooper hits a hopper to Hernandez. He makes a fine stop, but on the play, Paul Molitor scores. It's 2-1 Milwaukee. Top of the fifth, Cardinals' Lonnie Smith hits a drive into right center field. This is the kind of play that saved the day for the Brewers. Charlie Moore with a catch. Bottom of the fifth, Paul Molitor with the bases loaded. Base hit to left field. Charlie Moore scores. 3-1, Milwaukee Brewers have the lead. Top of the sixth, Brewers are leading 3-2. The Cards with 2 on, 2 out. Darrell Porter is robbed by Cecil Cooper, who throws the first in time to retire the side. Bottom of the seventh, Robin Yount gets his 4th hit of the game off of Bob Forsch. It's an opposite field home run. The Brewers on top 4-2. Now to the bottom of the 8th. Brewers lead 4-2. Bruce Sutter in relief. Charlie Moore, base hit to right center field. Ben Ogilvy will come in to score. That'll be the winning run, making it 5-2, the Brewers. Top of the 9th, Brewers lead 6-4. Gene Tennis, the go-ahead run, hits a drive into left field, and there's Ben Ogilvy. Brewers win Game 5, 6-4. I'm George Michael for NBC News.
Less than 9,000 fans showed up at RFK Stadium for the Players Union first All-Star game. We pick it up in the first quarter. National team in red. Detroit's Gary Danielson will hit John Spagnola of Philadelphia for a 13-yard score, 7-0 Nationals. Late in the second quarter, the Americans trailing 10-6. New England's Steve Grogan finds Nat Moore of Miami for 21 yards. The AFC led 12-10 at halftime. In the third quarter, the Nationals trailing 15-10. Gary Danielson, long bomb, 48 yards to Mel Gray of St. Louis. It was 17-15. Later in the third quarter, the Americans come back when Miami's Don Strock finds Ray Butler of Baltimore downfield. A 61-yard touchdown play gives the Americans a 22-17 lead. Then, with just over a minute to go in the game, the Nationals trailing 22-20. Mark Mosley of Washington connects on a 45-yard field goal. The NFC East defeats the AFC East 23-22.
People missed some good football today, and I think you'll have to admit this was not just a rag-type touch football game out there. The guys were really playing good football, and there were some good plays and some good hitting out there.
Scott Clark reporting for NBC News. $1,775.40.
From the beginning, 75 years ago, the evolution of aviation in the military has been a struggle. The beginning of World War I found aircraft relegated to reconnaissance missions, but soon guns were added to the planes to shoot down other aircrafts flying on troop positions. And not long after, crude attempts were made to turn planes into bombers. Through World War II, planes evolved into a major fighting force. But it wasn't until after the war, in 1947, that Congress decided that the Army Air Corps should become a separate branch of the service known as the U.S. Air Force. The modern Air Force is made up of jet-propelled aircraft that can fly in excess of 3 times the speed of sound, and of course ballistic missiles. Today, Montgomeryans had a chance to see some of the first-line aircraft used by the Air Force as Maxwell presented 2 hours of low-level flyovers. Maxwell Salute will be capped off tonight with a dinner and ball at the Montgomery Civic Center. Highlighting the dinner will be a speech by Space Shuttle astronaut Henry Hartsfield. Hartsfield arrived at Maxwell Air Force Base late this afternoon in his NASA T-38. The Space Shuttle astronaut says we should look back on the past space activities as exploration. But now we're moving into an era of space exploitation.
We're going to make space work for us, and we're going to make it work for all agencies of the government and all the people of the country. The Air Force is going to be a principal user of the shuttle to replace some of its throwaway boosters. We'll be able to use the shuttle as its truck, or as a replacement for its future and for the future. And as we begin to work in space, since we will now have routine access with the shuttle, I like to call it the freeway to space, you're going to see big things develop in there.
Do you think it'll be space travel will be as common as flying from the East Coast to the West Coast and be available to civilians one of these days?
Oh, yes. Well, we got a blue ribbon panel right now.
Dr. Randolph predicts the Justice Department will decide the merger issue after the November general election. He says he's optimistic about the possible consolidation and agrees that the schools do need to comply with federal regulations. He says other schools share the same viewpoint.
Alabama, that is the leadership of Alabama, its institutions of higher education, understands that and wishes to get into compliance. I think that is clear. At least it's clear to me.
ASU is also waiting for a federal court to rule in the Knight versus James case, where the governor wants to establish one board of directors for the 3 local universities. Dr. Randolph says Governor James wants to consolidate the 3 Montgomery institutions, calling them the University of Montgomery. But Dr. Randolph says with that plan, ASU would lose its black historical identity. He says the administrators at TSUM and AUM aren't sitting back waiting for an answer from the federal government. They and Dr. Randolph are meeting and sharing ideas for what Dr. Randolph called cooperative programs at the 3 schools. Dr. Randolph has some positive ideas about ASU's future. That story tonight at 10. Kim Davis, WSFA TV News.
The high-mobility, multi-purpose wheeled vehicle, Humvee for short, looks something like a cross between a truck and a Jeep. But General Dynamics says it will do more than either of those vehicles, and they want the Army to start using the Humvee. And so do some businessmen from Alabama, because a government contract for General Dynamics can mean subcontracts for many of them.
Our major objective is to find a plant in a area where we have the availability of a very skilled workforce, a very high work ethic, and the ability to be price competitive on the program.
Today's meeting between the businessmen and the company was arranged by Congressman Bill Dickinson, and for many of the businessmen, it was encouraging.
Well, it's kind of what we can build for them, really. It would be a great opportunity for us, yes, it would.
Well, it depends on how much of the business we could get, but, you know, with 55,000 of these over 5 years, it's a lot of money, and if we could get just 2% of their supply, it could improve our employment immensely in Evergreen.
The project has been called the most significant wheeled vehicle investment by the Army in years. With a price tag in the billions of dollars, many Alabama businessmen hope it will have a significant impact on the home front as well. Tom Foreman, WSFA TV News.
Senator Denton, Congressman Kemp, and Emery Fulmer were greeted by an enthusiastic crowd. The three Republicans wasted no time in praising the efforts of President Reagan and promoting Mr. Fulmer's leadership qualities. Senator Denton told the crowd that Emery Fulmer is the man to meet the challenges in Alabama's future.
Now, I don't have to tell you, Emery Fulmer has been a great mayor. That he showed leadership as a serviceman, as the mayor of Montgomery. He's admired, he's popular. He's going to do the same thing as governor of this state. He's closing the gap. He's got momentum. He's going to win.
New York Congressman Jack Kemp says this is an extraordinary year in Alabama, and in an indirect reference to Democrat George Wallace, Congressman Kemp advised voters to reject policies of past governors.
Because if we have the type of leadership as we've had in the past that tries to separate us one from another, one race from another race, one people from another people, one state from another state, one income class from another income class, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be doomed to a future of zero-sum economics and zero-sum sociology. We don't need the sociologists in Washington to tell us what's good for America, what's good for our family, what's good for this nation, what's good for this people is something that's going to be good for this nation and for our children, and that's Emery Fulmer for Alabama, not his opponent. To get spending and
Mr.
borrowing
Fulmer,
under
however,
control,
was more
get the
direct in
burden
his
of the
criticisms
government.
of Mr. Wallace.
Ladies and gentlemen, George Wallace can't solve the problems of Alabama. He is the problem.
The campaign moves to Clark County tonight with a fish fry with Congressman Jack Edwards and House Speaker Joe McCorkadale. Dennis Latham, WSFA TV News with the Fulmer campaign in Huntsville.
The situation.
This morning about 10 o'clock, Clyde Hilberth came into the hospital here and to see his wife, Mary. She's employed here and works in the laundry room. Sometime during their discussion in the laundry room, she was shot with a .357 Magnum. Her condition is serious. She's en route to Jackson's Hospital at this time.